Hello, I'm Tim Davis, founder, owner, and head janitor here at Cybersalt. That's my business here on the Westshore. I do web design and consulting. I help organizations and companies with their internet needs and their presence on the internet. If I can't do it, I'll help you find someone that can help you with your needs. I also do some remote computer support, maintenance, repair. If you have good internet connection, you don't need to bring it to me. And also some training that I do online for people on using their own website. Anyways, last night, October the 2nd, Tuesday, I went to the All Candidates meeting at Church of the Advent here in Colwood, where all of the candidates in the upcoming municipal election on October the 20th were present for the All Candidates meeting. Now, I was going to that meeting anyways, and I saw on Facebook that people who weren't able to go were wishing that there was a live stream. Now, a live stream for 2 hours and 20 minutes is a lot more technically challenging than just the live stream that some news organizations or that we all do just with our phone at the beach or wherever we are for a couple of minutes. The power supply, a stable internet connection, and the hardware to do it's a bit more of a challenge. But I do have some new tech that I wanted to play around with, so I brought it and set it up on a tripod and just to see what I could capture and if it was good enough to share for everybody to hear who couldn't see it or couldn't be present, then I figured I would share it, and I think that it is good enough. So I just have a few notes I want to go over with you here, though. I was not hired to make this video, so this video is not me trying to make a professional video, and so that's why the video is not professional. Like I said, I was trying some new tech out, and so a couple times I noticed the camera stopped recording automatically, and so I restarted it, so there's a few blips there. Sound-wise, I had a boom mic on my camera. So those of you who were there saw me with the tripod at the back of the room. So I was just picking up the sound that was there for the coming over the PA system. So I wasn't plugged into the sound system. And I did no pre-setup. I wasn't in charge of lighting or anything like that. I just set up my camera. And in fact, setting up my camera, getting there just before the meeting started, I missed Rob Martin's opening comments. He's one of the candidates for mayor in the upcoming election, and so out of fairness for time, airtime, I have deleted Carol Hamilton's opening comments. All the other comments, them answering questions, all the candidates, it is all there, but just to be fair, I just balanced it out that way. So the video is what it is as a result of my experimenting, doing a little bit of color tweaking because of the lighting, how things turned out, but such as it is, here is the All Candidates meeting at Church of the Advent in Colwood for the 2018 election, brought to you by...
My name is Eve Millington, and I taught Sunday school in this church for 7 years when my kids were young, over 20 years ago, well, probably closer to 30 now. I also have donated blood here. It's a nice feeling to be here. I've been interested in public affairs all my life, and I've also been an active community volunteer for over 25 years with the Alzheimer's Society and BC Children's Hospital and the BC Cancer Foundation, Canada 150, and many other endeavors. Including a private scholarship fund of which I'm a co-founder and executive director, and the Lou Williamson Scholarship Fund. We support music students, particularly public music students, because it is dear to my husband and I, and we give out scholarships to kids at Royal Bay, Belmont, and also through the Symphony, Victoria Symphony and Jazz Fest International in Victoria, and throughout Canada, including McGill University, Capilano, Music Fest Canada. Some of you may be familiar with that. Anyway, I look at this as an extension of my passion for giving, and I hope as a first-timer, okay, thank you, that's it, I guess, thank you.
Welcome everybody. I won't list you all off again. I think think we know it's our community that's here. And I'm very appreciative of the number of people who are here in the audience. I've been elected for Colwood since 2002, was my first election. My 3 children were all in elementary school at that time. They're now all finished school, and I am still here trying to engage my community to make it a better place. My most important thing that I feel that I've done in the years that I've been here thus far is to really enshrine the importance of community engagement. I think I borrowed my license to vote on your behalf while I'm there, and I think it's very important that we hear from people about how they feel in our community. It needs to stay affordable, it needs to be livable, and we need to be accessible. The work that I think I still have to do includes increasing the access in our community for people with disabilities, finding ways to make it more affordable for families by providing childcare options, and improving transit, of course, is a huge goal. It takes more than 1 year to get that done. And so we are working forward in a positive way, listening to our community, because if we get it wrong, we need to hear from you if we don't understand. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Doug Kobayashi. Don't ask me to pronounce that again, because I pronounce it differently each time. I think if you go online there on Facebook, you can see my background. I am a local boy. I'm going to tell you I'm 62, so everyone stop saying I'm too young to have done everything I have done. I went to Elizabeth Fisher, Belmont High School, Royal Roads Military College, spent a little time in the military, and the rest of my time I was served as an executive in the aerospace industry, not a rocket science, so just in the aerospace industry. I am retired. I'm a retired professional engineer. I've actually ran 2 small businesses here in Victoria, so I know both ends of the spectrum. And really what I want to spend time on right now is just quickly what I stand for, my platform. And like Rob, I'm pro-economic development, but responsible economic development. We need the tax base. And just look at our financials in the city right now. You know, we're liquid, but solvency, for everything that we have $200 million in assets, and we want to hold our revenues basically steady state, 1.5 increase over the next 5 years. That doesn't cut it. So that's number one. Number two, I'd like to be the city that helps. And that means let's start cutting some of the red tape. I'm not saying everything that our next door neighbor does is correct, but they do some good things right. And the very fact that it takes to get a development permit right now, it's just too long. And that cuts me off, and so I didn't get to say what I wanted to say. But anyways, that's where I am. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Scott McDonald. I came to Colwood about 11 years ago, and it was a little bit sleepier than it is right now. My wife and I have raised a daughter in the French immersion system, John Stubbs, and she's over in Belmont now. And she is the reason that I'm standing before you asking for your vote, because she's a volunteer extraordinaire. And I would come home from Colwood council meetings and complain. And she would say, "Dad, quit complaining. Do something about it. Stop talking. Nobody wants to listen to you. Just do something about it." So here I am. I did my university at U of T post-grad work at UBC, University of Kyoto. I have lived in 7 or 8 different countries, 4 different provinces, 2 US states, in cities the size of Tokyo, 2 cities of 200 or 300 people. So I see how things work. Colwood is the best city on the planet. I intend to die here, actually, I tell people, but not soon. My main concerns are preserving the Colwood feel, our environment, well, getting people to live and work in this community. We need more development at measured pace, but we don't need wanton development. We need to preserve our beaches. Anyways, if you get a chance, go to scottingcolwood.ca and see what I stand for, and I hope you'll come out and vote on October 20th. Thank you.
Boy, I get the last word. Good evening and welcome to all. You can find my personal information and my council experience on my pamphlet and on my website. So I'm going to talk tonight about what I've worked on for the last 4 years on council and hope to continue with if re-elected. I spent over 2 years chairing the committee that undertook public consultation in our official community plan. It was a real pleasure to see how many residents took part in this process, and I appreciate the effort by city staff, council, and our consultants to draw all of this input into the new plan. I believe the document is a good interpretation of what the residents want in our community to be like in the future, and I'd like to work with the next council to follow the plan as adopted. Past experience has shown these plans are too often amended by council under pressure from developers. I've always put residents' wishes first, and when changes are proposed, I would continue to do so if re-elected. I also served on the committee to review the urban forest bylaw and propose changes to city council. This committee was composed of experts in forest management, residents with expertise, and residents with interest in this area. I believe the new bylaw will help us manage the trees in Colwood and provide the framework for conservation, protection, and future management of our great natural assets. If re-elected, I will keep council following the new bylaw. Also, as this is a new bylaw, I will work to ensure it really reflects what the residents want and is not too onerous. To sum it up, why should you vote for me in the civic election? I bring experience with 13 years on council and numerous committees. I have demonstrated integrity. My record shows that I put wishes and interests of people to Colwood first, and I've demonstrated openness. Anybody who's followed my 4 terms knows that I'm always forthright, no hidden agendas. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Aaron Weisgerber, and sorry, Julie. I am the youngest candidate up here for council, also probably the newest to the community. I have just recently moved over from View Royal, where I'm wrapping up a 4-year term on View Royal Council, and I'm looking to bring that experience and knowledge and those relationships over to serve my new community. I believe it is important to serve in the community in which you live, represent your own neighborhood and the neighborhoods around you. In my 4 years there, I've been involved in building several relationships, both with the Chamber, with the First Nations groups, with Friends of Coal Island and the school PAC committees, involving the youth. We're 99% of the way there, getting a youth committee going, which I'd like to bring to Colwood as well, getting the younger generation involved, as well as supporting the seniors, making sure that they can stay in place throughout their retirement and enjoy the community that they've most likely lived in longer than most of us. As well as other objectives, transportation, sewage, Sewage, we all know, is a bit of a mess in Colwood, and I'm looking to urge staff to make rapid decisions on that. And transportation, working again with our neighboring municipalities and the province with relationships I've already somewhat formed to make sure that we get something happening in the next couple of years on the ENN rail line and rapid bus lanes, etc., to help get some of the cars off the road. So a little more about myself. I am a working professional just here in Langford. Work for the Alpine Group. Married, again, new to the community, but I've been involved in leadership roles right from high school, students council, that sort of thing, and I've been involved ever since, helping my community, and I'm looking forward to doing it even further. Thank you.
I want to thank you, candidates. We're going to start with the first question period of the evening. Now, questions have been submitted a few different ways. The public had the opportunity to submit questions via the Westshore Chamber of Commerce online survey, as well as in our draw box here tonight, and questions can still be submitted. Back of the room, there is a box in the back of the room where you can still write down, right back there. Where you can still submit some questions. We've received lots of questions, and it will of course be impossible to get to all of them this evening. This forum is designed to help you get to know your candidates better, and as you will likely still have questions left at the end of the evening, we encourage you to contact your candidates directly in the days to come before the election. The first question round is designed to give the opportunity to compare and contrast the views of each candidate by asking the candidates to answer the same single question. This was chosen from the questions submitted by the online survey and sent to all of the candidates in advance. So the first question of the night is... guys, wait for the drum roll. What would you change in the official community plan? So the question will be answered with all of the candidates, starting with... There we go. Aaron Weisger.
So as everybody is aware, the OCP was just recently adopted. Probably the last thing our outgoing council was able to accomplish. It is a process that takes years to accomplish, involves businesses and residents from around the community, and I think it is, we owe them a huge debt of gratitude for completing it. There are certainly some a review needed of certain aspects of it. Again, it's a 400-page document. I haven't read it front to back, but I'd like to see that any cost increases built into the OCP in relation to development are addressed first and foremost. We want to make sure that we maintain affordability as we grow as a community, as we see new development. And so any changes in the OCP that create more red tape, for example, and therefore more costs need to be addressed first. Thank you.
I'd like to shortcut what Aaron has just said. But in addition to that, I also participated in a number of the open houses that the city hosted in regard to the formulation and community outreach with regard to our current OCP. And I'm really quite pleased with a large portion of it. I think there is a lot of good in it. That being said, I still think there's opportunity for tweaking and perhaps readdressing what I see as a potential disparity in the application of improvements throughout Colwood. It seems that the focus is on new development, which I'm all for. I think to that end, Colwood needs to streamline the process. I think if we have a reputation as being consistent and timely and considerate in the way we how should I say, consider development and work with developers, we will attract quality development within our community. I think if we don't change that, we will be dealing with a patchwork of development that doesn't share a vision that benefits all of us. And is that, how many seconds? Okay. And I think we need more consistency in terms of things like sewers and other things that the whole community should participate in. And I guess I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think the OCP is a very important document. And it's important because not only did a whole lot of work go into it, but a whole lot of input from our community went into this official community plan. And I think it's very important that we follow that plan and develop the way the residents want us to. That's what the official community plan sets out. They set out what the community told us they wanted. So I'm not, I don't take it lightly, and I don't think anyone should take it lightly. It's our guiding document, and it is pointing development to those areas that are best served by transit, which was what we heard from our residents. So from my perspective, there's been a very fulsome process and a lot of opportunity for feedback. And unless our community really changes dramatically, I don't think that the plan should change at this point in time, because it points our compass so that we can put the services in that are needed in the areas that need them the most. So it's going to do something that hasn't happened before in Colwood, which is focus our efforts on a single corridor and providing improved services so that transit is a better option. And by having that development come in those areas, then we can also work with transit to make sure the service comes to support it.
The OCP is actually 337 pages long, and I did read it. It's a living document, folks. You know, it's a plan, it's a living document, and circumstances change, and they will change. There's things that we can't even predict right now. So, you know, you can amend the OCP. You know, there are a lot of issues in it that I find right now because they lack the details. I keep on asking the question, I'm this money guy, right? And I keep on saying to myself, how are we paying for all this stuff? I know there's a lot of developer stuff in there, there's stuff that we as a municipality will be paying for. Until I see that properly costed out and have the proper facts in front of me, you know, I can't say anything furthermore on it. It is a plan and it's a guide. So, and like I said, it is a living document. So that's my answer.
So, for those who aren't aware, who didn't actually see as we were processing through the OCP plan, one of the major, actually the major issue that we had was with the development community. The development community pushed back on the OCP, and they hired a consultant. They hired a consultant named Mark Holland. Mark Holland did actually do our previous OCP in 2007, so it wasn't like it was some strange person out of the way. Mark Holland brought back 30 points that he wanted addressed through it. When we passed the OCP, the development community didn't feel like those questions were answered. They weren't addressed. And I also want to address this too. When I say development community, for some reason we want to push that off and say that's somebody, that's big business, that's something else. Those are local people too. Those are people who live in our community, who want to improve our community as well. So they as much have a right to their voice as any other resident. And through that report, where I was disappointed was when it finally got passed, the development community didn't feel like they were heard. And that's where we need to change. We need to be able to, as a council, feel that everyone, it doesn't matter who you are within our community, feels as though they have been heard. It doesn't mean we have to say yes every single time, but it does need some recognition and some appreciation that these people are investing into our community. And so if there's anything that I would like to see in an improvement in our OCP is just making sure that every single resident feels as though they are heard. Thank you.
I read all 337 pages of the OCP, and I'd like to congratulate city staff, mayor, and council on completing such a courageous task. This OCP is going to guide the community over the next 20 years, and far be it from me to second guess 2.5 years of research, community input, your input. I was there, I saw you at Making Waves, giving your ideas, the surveys. If you go to page 107 and 108 of the OCP, you'll see economic development strategies. If you only read 2 pages, I'll read 109 too. Read those 3. I'll defend the OCP. It is a living document. And maybe 5 years from now, economic situation might change, demographic situation might change, business climate might change. We might have to amend it. That's reasonable. But today, no, I'm very happy with the OCP as is, because that's your OCP. You put your hard work and ideas into it. City staff did their job, and council and mayor shepherded it through. Thank you.
Well, as you heard, I spent those 2.5 years on that committee. I think it's a fantastic OCP. I think it deserves all of council's support, and certainly we know most of the residents in Colwood do support it. One of the shortfalls I see in the OCP is in transportation. One of the goals of the plan is to move people out of automobiles into buses, onto bike lanes, alternative means of getting around the city. It doesn't go into very many specifics. It doesn't go into really specific plans of where these trails are going to be and how they're going to be designed. That's something we have to do. We will be, the next council, reviewing the parks master plan. That might be a place to put it. And we should also be reviewing the transportation master plan, because that is now mostly 6 or 7 years old. And again, that can address those issues more specifically. So the OCP itself, I wouldn't make big changes to, but those other 2 plans should be adjusted to dovetail into it. Thank you.
Our next 2 set of questions will be answered individually by candidates chosen at random. We're using this format because we have, well, we've got a lot of questions. And it's the best way to cover as many questions as possible with the time we have available. So candidates, again, if you can keep your answers to 2 minutes maximum. So the first person to answer, Scott McDonald. Scott, we all know that climate change has brought increased wind speeds, droughts, and hotter temperatures. Therefore, I would like to know what your plan is to mitigate the risk of an interface fire in Outlet Park, which is surrounded on all sides by homes. Oh, if you're not familiar with Outlook Park, what is your view on managing fire risk generally across Colwood?
Okay, global warming is presenting us with a number of problems. Our lack of care of the environment is presenting us with others. I used to live in Banff National Park, and fire suppression was de rigueur. I mean, that's what we did. And in 2002, the year my daughter was born, for 2 months, it was smoky and foggy because of fires from Kelowna to Banff, because we left the wood, the underbrush. We didn't allow natural fires to occur. Now, we can't burn down Colwood. I don't want to do that. And we do now have a urban forestry bylaw, 1710, I believe, which I support. But we have to have a proactive plan of mitigating brush, mitigating organic material, and that's not being done. In fact, we had a fire just a few weeks ago, and thankfully Colwood Fire Department was on their toes. He was tweeting about it, and it all ended well, but it might not. We don't want to end up like the Okanagan or the interior. We've got a chance to mitigate this now, and we should put a plan together and do it.
Wow. My brother was going to be a doctor because of his handwriting, and I think this might be his cousin. Why traffic calming on Machosen Road, which is main thoroughfare, but no protection for class-size groups of very young children on Lagoon Road? Very narrow shoulder with no barrier. Yeah, okay, good. Yeah. Why traffic calming on Machosen Road, which is main thoroughfare, but no protection for class-size groups? The main thoroughfare and there's no protection.
Lagoon Road. I think the question is why Machosen and not Lagoon?
Yeah, okay, there you go.
My preference is both of them, and really we do have to fix Lagoon Road. It's dangerous to walk on. It does need better sidewalks. One of the big issues that all of Colwood needs is some way of better speed control. That is the biggest issue. We've asked the RCMP repeatedly to step up enforcement, and they just claim they don't have enough officers. We proposed speed humps in parts of the lagoon, but the residents turned them down, so those are not the answer. So my answer is we want to improve Lagoon Road. We need sidewalks all the way down it. We need probably another controlled pedestrian crossing so the kids can cross, especially at that blind corner by Heatherbell. So yes, it's in the long-term transportation plan eventually, and when people ask me these questions, I say, the city can do just about anything you want. How much do you want your taxes to go up? So we do it a little bit at a time. The gas tax the city gets, if you voted a project like this, and if re-elected, that's one of the issues I really want to look at, is safety on our streets and better transportation for pedestrians. Thank you.
Aaron, there's a lot of talk about infrastructure, sidewalks, transportation, etc. What are your views on putting sewer systems into existing areas which are currently on septic? When we talk about infrastructure, we should be including looking into putting in a sewer system. I'm all in favor of making Colwood look attractive for new businesses, developments, and residents, But I also think the current residents on septic would like a sewer issue to be addressed.
Sewer in Colwood, again, I imagine there's probably about 40% of us still on septic systems, so it's a significant number. Higher? Okay, scary. 70% apparently. I'd like to see within the next few years a concrete plan developed by city staff, perhaps with assistance of professionals, on how to expand our current sewer system into the neighborhood, so that existing neighborhoods, so that residents can hook up. I know over the past several years, any new developments have had the capacity to add on, and it has typically been built in. But I agree that certainly, as a lot of our septic systems, mine included, do age, it doesn't make sense to spend 30 to 40 grand on replacing the system if within the next 5 years you're going to be probably on the hook for half of that, perhaps, to hook up to a sewer system that will last you forever. So I will be urging staff to work diligently and quickly on finding solutions that don't only hit the pocketbook of the taxpayers. Hopefully we can find alternative sources of funding for this as well. Thank you.
Please name the top 3 priorities you would address within the first year.
Well, I'll say right off the top that I've got a vision that it lasts a little longer than a year and may take a little more than a year to come to fruition. So I'm not sure that I can honestly answer that question as it's posed. What I can tell you is that if I were elected, I have 3 issues that are of most importance to me. And there are more, but the 3 top for me are, number 1, public transit. And I think Colwood needs to participate in a regional solution to public transit. I wholly support redeveloping the ENN, the existing ENN railway, into a rapid transit busway. I've done a lot of research personally on public transit and busways versus light rail. And I found very, very good research done by an urban planner who created the urban plan, transit plan for Los Angeles, which has a population of, it varies between 11 and 17 million, depending on how many people or counties you include. The reality is that light rail can cost up to 4 times as much as rapid bus transit. And who's going to pay for that? Where would we get the consensus to spend that much more money on something when there is a much more cost-effective solution? And buses over time could be converted to battery electric, which would make them the ultimate green vehicle. I guess that's it. Thank you.
What plans for infrastructure for new developments, especially Royal Bay, 2,300 homes, the chosen road needs updating already. More transit, more schools.
Okay, more transit, more schools. Unfortunately, both are things that I have lobbied long and hard for, and certainly won't be accomplished in the first year, like the previous question. I've learned that it takes a long time to make the case, to get real change to happen. I started off when my daughter, who's 23, was a baby, lobbying for a new high school. She didn't make it. She was already graduated by the time we did get one. So schools can take a long time. but they do require long-term planning. And there has been a considerable amount of long-term planning for that. As far as transit goes, I am looking to increase the availability of transit in our transit corridors through the improvements of the infrastructure. That's something that we can control. And also through lobbying BC Transit to bring more transit options and trying to get people using transit. Because the more successful a bus route is, the more likely it is to get even better service. So I think that the approach for the future has to be one of making it a doable and achievable option for people to participate in, and then they will continue to add more service to an existing successful plan.
Doug? Many projects remain unfinished. Example, Colwood Corners, as well as the big hole on Whale Road. Can the Colwood Council get this done ASAP? It has been years. It has been frustrating to watch as other municipalities boom along. If you were a new candidate, what do you think could be done to reduce development delays?
This is a very emotional question for me. Yes. The first thing that has to be done here is we've got to tell developers that we're open for business. I'm telling you right now, just to get a development permit is absolutely ridiculous in the city. Absolutely ridiculous. You know, whether you like or don't like developers, you know, this is ridiculous. You know, 10 years ago, we were promised all these things that were supposed to happen. I even went on Czech TV wearing my hat as the president of the Chamber of Commerce, announcing that, oh yeah, this development's gonna go now. We got rid of the lead guys, and we got all these new people, and we can't use the excuse that, well, it's not our fault, it's the developers. No, it's part of the due diligence, and that's another part of it right now. You gotta make sure they have the funds to do it. Yes, this is very emotional to me. And you know, we've got to change the culture right now. You know, yes, we are open for business, and you know, it's there's lots of room there. The OCP does do a really good job of that, explaining, you know, the multi-use businesses that, and residential they want down there, and it's all good stuff. But it's changing right now, and in the short term, there are the things that we can do. The first thing we can do is our own processes. That's totally in our control. And so, you know, whether or not I do or don't get elected, you know, I'm going to be the bee. Because I'm not going to stop hounding, because, you know, I love the community. And basically what everyone else is saying, we got to do this, we got to do that. The bottom line, folks, is that we need the revenue. And empty holes do not create revenue. Thank you.
What is your plan, if any, to upgrade sidewalks and pedestrian infrastructure in the upcoming year?
I'm going to sidewalk everything. The problem we have with sidewalks is we have to have development to do it. People don't realize, one of the fascinating things when you see infrastructure being built, a lot of times people are thinking, oh, that's the city doing it. It's not the city doing it. It's when we have a project, we're able to ask for something for the community as a council. So we're able to ask for sidewalks. We're able to ask for DCCs. We're able to ask for things that the community needs and wants. If we don't have development, we're not going to be able to do it. If we want the community, however, if we want our taxpayers to pay for it, we can do that. And one of the things that we have to recognize, because we're such a small city, If we increase our spending by $120,000 a year, that's a 1% tax levy for every single resident, or excuse me, every household in Colwood. So we're dealing with very small numbers that will have a large impact on residential tax base. And again, we feed back into that when I talk about the 93% of us, or 93% of our tax base is residential. And if we're going to grow this community, and this is one of the other things that we have to understand and recognize, we're in a really tough moment right now. We're in a tough moment because we're transitioning. We're transitioning from being a rural community to being an urban community. And when you're a rural community, you're able to have dirt roads, and you're able to have roads that don't need sidewalks. And as we're transitioning also with sewers, one of the things, and I apologize that I'm digressing, but people also ask about sewers. Sewers, there's a number out there, and it's roughly between $25 million to $40 million if we want to sewer the entire city. Now think about that again, $120,000 of 1% tax levy. And we're going to spend $40 million to do it. So it's going to have to be a long-term project for us. And it's going to have to be a long-term issue around sidewalks as well. But we have to start doing it now, and I see her standing up, so I'm going to sit down.
Cynthia Day. What will you do to preserve Esquamont Lagoon and prevent overnight campers?
Okay, so Esquimalt Lagoon has been recently had a study that we did at the city to have a look at what should we do about the sewage lift station, which is located right on the lagoon where the public washrooms are. And also had a look at sea level rise and what's going to happen in the future with climate change. And that diagram showed us pretty clearly how important it is to do something to replenish the beach. So going forward to this budget coming up will be an ask for $600,000 to add sand to Esquimalt Lagoon to improve the longevity of that whole area, which is very important in terms of the houses that are there. There's a map that you can look at online that shows you exactly where the, I think they're called geomorphologists who did the study, determined the sea level rise would be. So it's very important that we look realistically at what we can do to keep things as they are now. And as we come forward with our studies and then we refine our plans, we have to plan for all of those events, including the storms that throw the logs up, and have to do what we can to keep it a safe place and an enjoyable place to be.
Songhees in the city of Colwood sat at a table at city talking about Royal Roads. What is council's thought and what was a good idea? Why?
I don't know, because I wasn't part of the conversation. And being a governor at Royal Roads University, I have to recuse myself from that question. No, I'm just kidding you. I was not at the table, so I don't even know. I couldn't even answer that question. To tell the truth.
development, where is a corresponding increase in infrastructure, mainly road system, to cope with the huge increase in traffic? Idle traffic means vast amounts of CO2 dumped into the atmosphere.
So what's the question?
Well, good question. Where is the corresponding increase in infrastructure going to come from, mainly to the road system to cope with the huge traffic? Basically.
Okay, I got the gist of it now.
Okay, perfect.
So, you know, this isn't certainly a simple solution here. I see a lot of people saying, you know, have HOV lanes, do this, do that. We as a city alone, we could put an HOV lane, but we hit View Royal, and if they decide they don't want it, then it stops there. So the problem is, if you look at this, you know, I'm just a dumb engineer here, but I look at the problem in a more global sense here. It's like a funnel, right? The problem actually starts down in Sandwich. Everything, you know, all the people that live up Island, all the people that live here in the Westshore, we're all funneling in. And that's what's causing it. So we can do all the things that we want here within our boundaries, but it obviously requires a regional solution to this. And it's not by building another department in CRD or anything like that. I'm not suggesting that at all. But whatever solution we have, it's got to be a regional solution. Now, I've seen the idea of sea ferries, you know, running back and forth, but I got some information that I have an advantage here. 5 years ago, we did the study. We had Blackball Ferries do the study on it, and basically, there's a lot of times of the year they wouldn't be able to run the ferry back and forth because the waters are pretty rough out there. If we moved indoors to where the blue ferry used to be, yes, you can. It's protected. It's a harbor. Another suggestion, I mean, there's a lot of ideas. I mean, my crazy idea was run a tunnel. You know, we can run trains, right, all over the place, but then you need 13 municipalities stamping off on it, right, and 3 of the First Nations lands that have to approve it, but lots of other options, but it is a regional solution. Thank you.
I take public transportation to commute into downtown for work, and I travel from around on a chosen road. Last year my commute was 30 to 40 minutes, and now is the same commute takes me about 60 to 75 minutes, with the worst section being along Soup Road up to the highway. The new school that is being built doesn't allow for Soup Road to be widened, and when I look at the plans for Colwood Corners, there's no plans for a dedicated bus HOV lane there either. What actions are you going to take to rectify this commuting nightmare now and further in the future? How are you going to make this equally important to development?
All right. So one of the things that I feel like I'm going to be repeating myself a lot tonight, but that's okay. So hopefully it'll sink in. You know, one of the very first things that we have to recognize around transit and about improving our transit here in our community is densification. And I know sometimes that's not comfortable to hear, but if we continue to build single-family homes, we're never going to get the population that's going to encourage transit to actually expand out into our community. So if we're actually looking for an improvement in our transportation, we have to be diligent in understanding that the old-style single-family home subdivision is no longer really appropriate if that's what we want. If what we want is to have single-family homes and to be that rural sort of semi-bedroom community, we can continue to build out like that, but we really can't afford to do that anymore. And also from a residential, from a cost standpoint, I hear what you're saying about trying to get into town. My kids who were going to university had to leave our home, and they had to move into town because it was too hard for them to get to UBEC. It was taking too much time. They were spending 75 minutes to an hour and a half to get home. So again, what we have to do is, how are we going to change that transit? We're not going to fix it very short term. We're going to fix it by bringing employment into our town. We're going to bring, you know, the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to be able to bring post-secondary into our communities, you have to understand that post-secondary, not only Royal Roads, but Camosun College, we need to have them here, either here in Colwood or here in Langford or somewhere in the western communities. That's how we're going to address some of those problems, by not having to leave our community.
How will you bring more doctors to Colwood?
Well, I believe that's a provincial responsibility. However, if I was a doctor, I'd live here. We can't move the needle on that one very much, except to build the best community possible, the most livable community possible, the most traversable community possible, the greenest community possible. If we do that, why wouldn't doctors want to move here? But I don't think it's really a question for a municipal council to really address to that specificity.
How would you go about providing permanent, affordable accommodation? Currently, apartments installed Machosen Road across from Sangster Road, but only built on the condition of them being sold after 10 years. This leaves renters back out looking for accommodation again.
Well, thank you. I don't know if you've walked around Colwood lately, but there are a number of building projects going on that are providing assisted rental. I think we've got about 200 or 300 units under construction right now. A good chunk of that is being funded by money we've collected from developers on our affordable housing chart. So that's one thing we're doing. Second thing we can do is concentrate on zoning. What we might want to look at doing is making some small lot subdivisions. If people are still enamored of the single family dwellings, we can go a much smaller lot, get a lot more people in the smaller space, and keep it more affordable. Defining affordable housing, I think, is one of the hardest things you can do. What is affordable? You know, it's defined as a certain percentage of your gross family income. But when land costs as much as it does in Colwood and the Westshore and on all the island, how do you keep that affordable? I don't know. I would ask maybe the province has crown land they could turn over to that kind of project. The city doesn't have the land to do that. And as Councillor Martin pointed out, if we start buying that land, it's all going to come out of your taxes, and that makes it unaffordable to live here. So, difficult question. We're working as best we can, and maybe we can get some partnerships with the CRD affordable housing now that we've been shanghaied into paying into it, and get some leverage on them helping build affordable housing out here.
What are the three accomplishments you have made in your position on council? I guess that would be, or the three priorities if you've never been on council. So you've been on council somewhere else?
I have, thank you. I was thinking about this earlier today. Some of the major accomplishments I made, although in a different municipality, focused primarily around public safety. Even before getting onto council, I was instrumental in getting the new public safety building approved in View Royal, which has been a huge benefit to the municipality. We have record-setting response times to medical aid calls and fires, etc., as well as pedestrian safety. I was instrumental in identifying and installing some crosswalks in very key areas, specifically around schools or routes to schools that elementary kids use on a daily basis, that have been neglected or just not aware of by staff back in View Royal. As far as going forward here, three of my main objectives are again public safety, identifying those areas that require sidewalks and crosswalks that are main transportation routes for pedestrians, cyclists. We want to be a little careful if you get into small neighborhoods with sidewalks. It kind of gives drivers the sense that they can speed up. So we want to be smart about where we put them. Also, education. It was mentioned before. I know post-secondary education has been looking to expand in the CRD, and I think Colwood is a great opportunity for them to move to with some of the vacant land that we have, both along Veterans Memorial as well as down in Royal Bay. So looking at those sort of objectives and bringing those to fruition in the next couple of years would be great. Thank you.
What is your view of development related to aging in place? So the boomers downsize, we can remain in the community we've come to love.
Thank you for that question. Seriously, it's something that's very close to my heart. My mom is in Ottawa, and she is in a publicly funded facility. She's got Alzheimer's. She is cared by nurses who I call angels. I'm fortunate to be able to see her a couple of times a year. We desperately need this in our own community. The reality is the boomer demographic, of which I'm a part, and I'm in the middle of it. We are all getting older. We all, I would assume, would love to stay in our community, ideally within close reach of our children and our grandchildren. We really, really need to invest in elder care right within our boundaries. Elder care and child care, that's the opposite end of the spectrum, but I think it's the socially responsible thing for us to do, and I think there are affordable ways to achieve it. Again, working with developers, increasing density to the point of affordability. If we keep pushing out our young people and our retirees into Souk and into island communities, guess what? They still share our highways. Wouldn't we be better off in our own best interest to make opportunities available to each of our demographics? Thank you.
Okay.
All right. That concludes the questions for the first group of the candidates. This evening, we would like to provide the candidates with a chance to provide any closing statements to make. As we did in the beginning, we'll draw in order for the candidates and then go to the right, and the mayoralty candidate will have the last to provide his remarks. Again, 2 minutes for everybody else, 3 for you. Starting with Jason.
First of all, I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight. I want to thank the Chamber for hosting this and the Church of the Advent as well. I'm going to throw out my closing remarks because one question that none of us has been asked yet is about arts and culture. Something that is dear to my heart. My daughter is a very good graphic artist. I was looking online at Sydney. They have the Mary Winstead Centre. It has a theater, it's got a gallery, it's got exhibition spaces so they can have shows. There's nothing like it on the West Shore. I would like to see the West Shore get together, cooperate, and build a facility like that. We can do it. much support as we give sports. We spend millions on arenas, skating rinks, curling rinks, swimming pools, nothing on the arts. I think it's time we change that. And if re-elected, I'm going to be looking for your support to see if we can make council do that.
To wrap up, I'm really looking to get on to Colwood Council to make some improvements in my new neighborhood, your neighborhoods as well. We've heard a lot tonight about development. I am pro-development as long as it's smart, as long as it's done in a responsible manner, as long as it's found to fit within our existing neighborhoods. I strongly support that there's neighborhood little subcommittees and input put in when there's major subdivisions and that sort of thing going on, so that the developers can come to us with your approval already in place. Makes it a lot easier, makes the process a lot quicker for us to approve these things and grow our tax base, our business development and that sort of thing in the community. I'd also like to touch on public safety, service delivery. I'd like to make sure that your tax dollars are netting you what you're looking for in the community, as far as everything from the streets and sidewalks to the occasional drop-off of your compost and yard waste, which again goes back to the fire hazard and that sort of thing. We need to put the tools out there for the community to utilize to make sure that you have a comfortable neighborhood. And finally, I'd like to reiterate that I do have some experience, and I'm a very common sense, level-headed individual. I bring that to all the decisions that I have made on previous council, and look forward to bringing that to working with you and for you in serving this community over the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you again for being here. My husband and I have run a very successful business in Colwood for over 20 years, and I believe I've developed a reputation for fiscal responsibility, delivering on promises, and just having another perspective from outside of government with regard to development, but also providing services and being realistic about what we can achieve with the budgets we have to work with and where the potential is for expanding our revenues. I'm 100% in favor of creating incentives for business, clean energy, clean industry, post-secondary satellite campuses, to relocate within our boundaries. But we have to open doors, we have to create an environment that is cooperative and timely. Time is money. Anyone that is in business knows if you drag your feet and tell somebody, oh yeah, well look at that in 6 months, it's not going to happen. Missed opportunities cost all of us money. So when somebody comes knocking on our door and says, hey, I've got an idea, I've got the money to back it up, this is how I'd like to make it happen, we need to listen and we need to look at it very carefully and make sure it's a fit for us, but also work, if it's a fit for us, let's work in a really timely fashion to make it happen so that it happens and becomes a reality. Okay, I raised my family here, lived here 30 years. Please vote for me. Eve Millington, ColwoodCouncil.com. Thank you very much.
Thanks everyone for being here tonight. I guess the most important thing for me is the community and being engaged. When I first moved here 30 years ago, I never saw my neighbors. I got in my car, I went to work, I came home, I worked in the yard, I went to sleep, I got up and I did it all over again. And I rode the bus. That was where I got to know my community. I had all my little bus friends. And as I've worked during this term with the Intermunicipal Advisory Committee on Disability Issues, I've learned an awful lot about our recreation center, how important they are, how accessible they are, how they support seniors, whether they're doing arts or crafts or swimming or jazzercise or the amazing array of There's 1,000 different ways to be a senior, of course. I'm getting there closer all the time. And we also have to have the services to support our family. We need to have services that you can go to here. So I believe we can do something to attract doctors to Colwood, to set up their practices here. Other remote communities market their communities, telling them what a fantastic place they are to live. And we can do similar things to that. We also have family services located right here in Colwood through Pacific Centre Family Services Association that are available to people, and that's really important to me. And I'm looking to do something to reinvigorate our Westshore Parks and Recreation, because it's a fabulous facility that we already share in, and we can do more together. So thank you very much.
I'd like to thank everyone here for coming out tonight, and you know, it's really a pleasure to having had this opportunity to speak to everyone. I just want to clarify a few things. I mean, I'm just not a money-hungry, grabbing guy, but the reality is, folks, and I'm being very truthful with you, you know, if you really have a good look at our books right now, you know, there's only, after you pay for the essential services, you know, all the mandatory things that we have to pay for. It's like when you have a house, you know, you pay for your mortgage, your utility bills, your phone bills, all that. There's only so much left over discretionary what you can spend in your own community. And like I said, on the short term, yeah, fine, but you know, I look at it this way. I've been here for the past 10 years, and they've done some really good things here, you know, and I'll pass kudos on to the current council, because there's some great things that the current council has done. But my frustration right now is that, yes, as Rob had alluded to, we're a small little town that is growing. And we're not going to stop the growth. You know, if we would have been here 20 years ago, that this room would probably be 1/3 the size it was. But the bottom line is that I'd like to close by just saying that, you know, we have to be held accountable, both politically and fiscally. And I'm for it, because if you elect me, you think that I get a bad job, I want to be fired in 4 years. You should demand it. And the way you do this is you scorecard us. Scorecard us. Show us, let's make it public on how we vote on issues. Let's also look at a bunch of scoring for our staff right now. So that's what I mean by that accountability. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming out. Really appreciate it. I'd like to thank First Nations for welcoming us on their land. You know, it's not about development or green spaces, more transportation or more housing. These are not enemies of each other. We can have our cake and eat it too, if we act responsibly. As Doug alluded to, we need more governance and oversight on procedures. I applaud council for starting to build reserve funds, but our reserve funds are nowhere near where they need to be. I don't belong to any provincial or federal party. I base my decisions on facts. I'm a mathematician and scientist at the core. So, you know, sometimes I like what the Green Party's doing, sometimes I like what the Conservatives are doing, sometimes I like what Mayor Hamilton's doing, and sometimes I don't. The main thing is, though, I would hope that you, the community, keep engaged. Keep coming to meetings like this, like you showed up for the OCP process. Keep involved in your community. And on October 20th, I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
thinking what I was going to say, and I guess I missed it. You've already been thanked many times, and I've already thanked you as well, but I do appreciate that you're engaged. You know, that is truly what's important. Yesterday we got to do sort of a dry run, because we got to go to John Stubbs Middle School and do a presentation there as well, and sort of have this debate. And one of the questions that came to us from them was, what do you like about the community? What's your favorite thing about the community? And my response yesterday and my response to you today is it's truly the people. It's you that matter. And one of the things that I really want to say is that we all of us, every single one of us in this room cares about this community. And it's about this communication, and it's about talking about how do we want our community to look. And always being open to having that discussion, and to be okay with us not agreeing all the time. And the only way we get to success is by actually talking to each other and saying, listen, I'm not okay with this, and I'm okay with that, and how do we move this forward, and how do we create a win-win-win for everybody in this? One of the things we didn't talk about today, which I really wish I had got an opportunity to also express to you, is just about our parks as well. People are surprised. Oh, I thought you were standing up on me. I thought, people get surprised that we have 50 parks in Colwood. We don't service a lot of them because we don't have the resources and we don't have the ability to do that. Part of the reason we also have these parks is because when we're having a development come on stream, we say to the developer, you got to give us a piece of land that's going to work as a park, and then we end up getting a piece of land that's really not usable for a park. So one of the things that I'm going to be really expressing in the next 4 years is making sure that we get those prime pieces so that we embrace this as a community, that we all have an opportunity to use this land and to use the resources that we have here for us. Finally, I want to say one last thing. I'm passionate about Colwood. I love Colwood. I don't want to live in any other jurisdiction. And as your mayor, I will be that advocate to not only internally, but externally. One of the things that we have to do is we have to get out there. If we want to find employment, we're not going to sit back and wait for it to come to us. I'm going to have to go out and get it. I'm going to have to talk to people. I'm going to have to find those people who are willing to come to our community. And she always throws me off with that hand. So I really, again, thank you for your time. I hope you'll come and talk to me afterwards. I would love to have that conversation. And I hope you actually take the time to talk to us all. Thanks, and thank you for the Chamber for organizing this event for us. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together, please, for group number 2. So, you guys were all here for the drill at the beginning. 2-minute comments for everybody, 3 minutes for Carol. Ingrid will be keeping time. You'll see her hand come up at the 15-second mark, and if you go over, she'll be standing up. So, we're going to start with Dean.
Oh, that figures.
I'd like to buy a foul. Good evening, my fellow Colwood residents, and thank you all for being here this evening. My name is Dean Jansen. I've lived here with my family for 12, going on 13 years now. My wife Cindy, my 2 sons Kaylin and Pierce, my in-laws George and Linda, all of whom were here this evening at some point. I am a police sergeant. I've been with the Sandwich Police for a period of 22 years. I have 4 years left to go, I'm not counting. My specialty is investigations. I work in our detective office, and I've done most of the jobs that you can think of as a police officer in that time. Formerly, I was the media relations officer. You may remember me on TV here and there, and I get a lot of that at the door. Why am I running? Quite simply, we love this place. It's where we chose to raise our family. I've been giving back to Colwood for many years. Old Dave Saunders, the old mayor, appointed me to the Protective Services Committee back in 2008. I was on that committee through to 2017. With my background and expertise, I helped make decisions for us as a community
on public safety related matters. I believe now that my knowledge, experience, and background I can take forward to council and help us in a greater way. I'm passionate about public safety, parks, trails, paths, outdoor play places, and sports fields. I believe development needs to be sustainable, but also attainable. Youth sports. I volunteered for the Juan de Fuca Soccer Club for 8 years. I'm passionate about vibrant sports community and how worthwhile it is to all of us. Why should you vote for me? I live a life of service and integrity. I'm passionate and enthusiastic. I'm a collaborator and consensus builder. You can place your trust in me. I would be honored if you would vote for me on October the 20th. I look forward to meeting all of you this evening. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Michael Baxter. I'm hoping to be one of your next councillors. I'd like to recognize that we meet on the unceded traditional territory of the Esquimalt and Songhees nations, and I think that building a relationship with the First Nations is going to be an important task for us in the coming years. I've never been elected to office, but I've probably been to more council meetings than anybody here, except probably Gordy, who's our longest serving councillor, because I've served in local government for over 40 years. The last 10 years before retirement, we're here in Colwood. I chose to work in small municipalities because it's possible to get a really intimate understanding of every aspect of the operation of the municipality. And I've managed planning departments, building departments, bylaw, engineering, public works, and for a stretch of time I managed all of those at once and was also approving officer for 13 years. I learned to read a financial document or a bylaw well enough to have spotted trouble when I first came to Colwood, and saw it in the legal and financial underpinnings of the Colwood sewer system. I ended up leading 5 years of work with the various chief financial officers that came through at that time, and a really brilliant solicitor to uncover the tangle, to negotiate the deal with the province and developers, to hugely simplify the system and to lower virtually everybody's sewer tax bill that was currently then on sewers. And after we'd finished, the sewers regulated legal bills for the city dropped by 90%. I'm passionate about Colwood, and I love this place, and I've made my home here. I want to see it protected, thoughtfully growing and improving as it goes.
I would like to begin by thanking each of you for coming out this evening in support of this community that we all call home. Your attendance here tonight tells me that you truly care about the current state and the future well-being of this community. For those of you that I have not already met, my name is Misty Olson. I'm happily married. I have a very supportive husband and 2 wonderful daughters. We purchased our first home in Colwood 5 years ago. We feel very blessed to be here. Colwood gave us the opportunity for a family home, and now I would like the opportunity to give back to my community. I'm going to put this down because my hands are shaking a bit. Our oldest daughter is a second-year Brownie, and we are grateful for the sense of community that the Girl Guide organization has brought into our home. We are also actively involved in programs at Westshore Parks and Recreation and proud members of the Juan de Fuca Royal Swim Team. My husband works for a small business in Colwood, and I'm an entrepreneur with a small business license within this city. My work experience includes over 10 years of community event planning and production, including the successful creation and production of 2 major community festivals within the city of Victoria. I have experience working in the non-for-profit sector, and as a tax-paying citizen myself, I'm mindful of where money is being spent and will be respectful of your tax dollars. My vision for Colwood is a place where all ages can interact in an inclusive community. I understand that an important role of council is to work collaboratively, and I am committed to working with mayor and council for the overall well-being of this community. And I'll be sure to work hard to ensure that every resident feels safe and included. Although this is a very new endeavor for me, I'm honest, open-minded, and accountable for my actions at all times. When times are tough, I have the drive to keep moving forward. I'm here today to ask for your support and giving me the opportunity to represent your voice and elect me, Misty Olson, for a seat on council. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the Chamber for organizing this. And my name is Stuart Parkinson. I'm running for the position of Colwood Councillor. I moved here in 1987 with my wife and 2 young kids. I moved to Colwood because I had a choice of where to live in Colwood. I had a choice of where to live in Victoria, and I had a choice of where to establish my business. I was establishing a consulting engineering business, and we opened in Colwood in 1987 as well. After a while, the firm grew a bit. It went well. We moved to Langford when there wasn't enough office space in Colwood for us. And the family grew a bit. We moved to Machosen. After the kids left home, we moved back to Colwood several years ago, and I sold the business. So I think I have the time and the energy to put into Colwood Council. When I was working, I made numerous presentations to the Colwood Council and many others. Attended dozens and dozens of council meetings over the years, both in Colwood and elsewhere. I have a respect for the depth and breadth of issues that come towards council. They're many and varied, and there's no easy answers in a lot of cases. I understand that by asking to be your councillor or one of your councillors, you're putting a lot of faith in me, and there's a lot of responsibility that goes with that. And I wanted to commit to you that I would accept that responsibility and work hard. I think that if I were to be elected, I would bring some skills that are perhaps different than some of the others running and that have been on council. As I said, I was a small businessman and professional engineer. I learned I had to make some hard calls. It wasn't always easy. I had to be frugal. I had to be frugal personally. I had to be frugal with the business already. I'm new at this. I had to be frugal with the business, and if elected, I'll be frugal with your money. My taxes went up 17% last year. That's too much. That's unsustainable. That has to be stopped. I hope to earn a reputation for being frugal and being the guy at the table who asks the hard questions. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's me again, yeah. This is fantastic. And I want to say my name's Gordy Logan, My name's Gordy Logan, and I'm running for another term on council. I've been on council for 19 years, and when I first got on council, I had no kids. I've got 3 kids. My 6'2" son is now 15, and I've got girls that are 11 and 13. You know, I'm just as passionate about Colwood today. In fact, I'm probably more passionate about Colwood today than I was when I was first elected. Council over the years, over this past term, has seen a priority to get processes into place, realign resources to better meet the needs of the public and development partners. And it meant updating bylaws and seeking our residents' opinion on how we want to develop as a community. And I recognize that the last 4 years perhaps hasn't been sexy, but it's work that we needed to get done. We've had many successes over the past 4 years. Just have a look at the Brooks School that just opened, the Trillium Care Facility that's well under construction, Pacific Center, and the Pacific Housing's affordable housing project that's 2006 growth are all successes, and it shows that there's confidence growing in Colwood. And that's not to say that there isn't work to do with our development community. Clearly there is. This term also saw the construction of some very important community connections like the Painter Trail. Has anyone walked the Painter Trail? Yeah.
It's a beautiful connection between two communities. And it's more of that we need to promote. We also saw another important connection with Haverwood Park and a crossing that has been on the books at the NP for years. Economic development has to be the cornerstone. Darn it. You see, I'm a politician that likes to talk, and I had notes and I tried to. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Let's move on to the questions. To allow you the opportunity to compare and contrast between your candidates, this group has also prepared answers for the following question. What would you change in the official community plan? This question will be answered by all candidates, starting with Gordy.
Yeah, can I just pick up where I left off? Well, I'm not sure what I would change at the moment with the OCP. I mean, we just literally adopted it, so it hasn't been tested. But what I liked about the OCP is the process. I mean, what we got out of it, what I got out of it, was that the status quo is not acceptable. We've seen that the community has changed over the last number of years, and residents who were heavily involved in the formation of this official community plan said, you know what, we weren't happy with the direction, or we want to see a change in direction. And that's what this official community plan represents. It's a change of direction that was really guided by the community. That's important. And as Doug Kobayashi had mentioned, it's a living document. It breathes. It's not to say that we can't address issues as they come up, but what it does is it's the people's document. And the people said, you know what, we ought to be focusing our development in certain areas that make sense, that are close to transit, to give people options to get to work, to get to wherever they want to play, to get to where they want to shop. So I know that there are some concerns with certain aspects of the official community plan, and no plan is going to appease and appeal to everybody. But this, again, is the people's plan, and it's a living document, and we will adapt as we implement various aspects of the official community plan. And that's just one document. There's a lot of other documents that feed into the official community plan, like the land use bylaw. That is so important, and it really guides us in terms of the servicing and everything else, the zoning, that kind of circles back to the official community plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Gord. The official community plan, so it is 400 pages. I actually do have a copy of it on my desk, and I can tell you that I have read it, tried to read it, certain parts of it. I find it to be vague in nature. And I'm not sure if it's just me or not, but it sets down a bit of a guideline for future development. However, I believe it's open to interpretation. My question is, whose interpretation is that? Is that the developer that's reading it, or is that the staff member that's reading it, or is it the council member that's reading it? It's not super prescriptive in nature. It's not specific. You can do this here. You can't do that there. So, consultation. We did hear a little bit about that earlier. I can tell you that I've knocked on almost 2,000 doors in this community. I'm judging that by the number of cards I've handed out. Many of you have said that I met you at the door, and sorry if I don't remember all of you, but I digress. Consultation, I met some small builders and I met some large developers, and this was all by happenstance. And I heard that many of them felt that they were left out. And how it is that we achieve consultation with all user groups and people who are going to be interpreting this document, I think is something to learn for the next time around. So, my understanding is there are reduced zones of development and intensification along certain corridors. That makes some sense to me. However, there were areas that were slated for development that have been removed from the last one. So I'm not exactly sure how that happened or why that happened, but it did happen. And as my mother used to say, the proof will be in the pudding. If we see an amendment to official community plan number this and that on agenda this and that, as we go along, every month at a committee meeting, we will know that perhaps we need to look at it a little bit differently the next time around. So let's wait and see.
I wish I hadn't mentioned pudding, I'm getting hungry. The OCP document is somewhere in the region of 350 pages long. Nothing that long is mistake-free at this stage of the game. And the previous OCP got an award, and a lot of mistakes were found in that over time. So what's going to happen is that over time, we'll find that there are inconsistencies, there are inaccuracies, there are vaguenesses that are actually a problem, and those will be fixed, and they'll be fixed quickly. But in general, the OCP was based on, I think, a really, really fine input process, which was perhaps even longer than it needed to be. But people had every opportunity to comment, to input into it. Then the actual OCP was drawn up, and the review period allowed for the public, given that you've got to read 350 odd pages, was too short. Okay, it's now been passed. It's a good OCP in essence, but we may find more mistakes than we had expected. The other issue here, and this I think is the root of the question, is that the relationship between the city and the developers is not good. Now that doesn't mean particular blame on either side, it's just not a good relationship. And we need a good relationship because we need to work together with them. If you have a good relationship, that doesn't mean to say you have to give away the store. It just means you understand each other's point of view, you work together, you discuss things calmly, rationally, and you come to a conclusion.
I feel like I can be honest with everybody in the room tonight and tell you that that is definitely the longest piece of important material that I've ever read in my entire life. A lot of work went into that. I have read through it. I know that it's my responsibility to really understand the importance of this document. So I know that I need to spend a lot more time reading it over and over and over again. As it was only recently adopted, I think that, as everyone else has said, the candidates, I think we're all on the same page that it is a living document. And that it may evolve through successive updates over time, and that the community might find course for it to be expanded as needed. I know that when the new council convenes, that the potential for amendments may come to the table from time to time. And I feel that we need to be open and willing to look at making changes as absolutely necessary and allow time for this document to breathe, and to be sure that the official community plan is, at the end of the day, it's meeting the demands of the community. Thank you.
Just for the start.
Well, then let me say, having participated in a number of OCPs at City of Colwood, this document is fundamentally the same. What we've done is evolve it. Where we have had less than stellar definitions or alignments, we've been creeping that forward. By far, this one had the largest public participation over a number of months, stretching into 2.5 years of work that was done on this with consultants and staff. We specifically tagged one council member as appointed by council to participate in that, and the rest of us stood back stood back so that we could actually hear from the people and not make it my OCP or Gordy's OCP, but the people's OCP. Did we get it right? Is it 100%? It's 27 pages long, 7 pages long. It is the flexible living document by which we will further refine and define by the supporting documents, such as Gordy said in there with our land use bylaw and some of the others that have to align. This is where it's fallen apart in the past, is where we haven't finished the process and haven't aligned those supporting documents. So there is plenty of opportunity for the next council to be participating in any of that tweaking that would be required to bring the OCP forward, that would be widely supported, meet the needs of the public that have so widely spoken, facilitate development in our community that makes it sustainable, and that council can stand behind all. Thank you.
So I have read the 337 pages a couple times. I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you I zoned out in the middle of it more than once. There's an awful lot of material and details in there. And there are things that, you know, the goals in one place might seem to conflict with the desires in another and things like that. So it's a brand new OCP. Yeah, there's going to be some learning curve as we go through it. I'm absolutely not going to say throw it out and start over again or make major changes. Let's see how it goes. But what I'm concerned about the most is how it's implemented. How do we deal with it? How do we, when we have a project coming forward and somebody says, this is the OCP, I've looked at my project, I think it kind of meets the intent, but of course it's not exactly here and there and that. And are we going to nitpick and, you know, make them do hundreds of development permits and hundreds of development variance permits? Or are we going to create a process that allows projects to be reviewed at a high level to make sure that we're in conformity and they can move forward with some certainty? Because I just think that this is a document that if you wanted to use it as a tool, could be a very blunt axe to club people with, or it could be a document that guides people in the intention that we have for our community. And I'm going to certainly advocate for the latter, and I think it can bring quality development, which is going to be good for the community and for all of us, but we just have to make sure it's not used as a tool to thwart and slow down and prevent. Thank you.
So our next set of questions will be, like the first panel, will be answered individually by candidates chosen at random. We are using this format because, again, we have lots of questions submitted, and it's the best way to cover as many questions as possible at the time we have available. So again, keep your answers to 2 minutes. Starting with Stuart. As a resident of Triangle Mountain, I would like to know the plan will be to keep Crager Terrace by the cul-de-sac beautiful. Over that 4 years, I have seen Colwood workers work on the front part of Carter where the $1 million houses are, but by the end of Carter, the cul-de-sac is neglected. If you are not familiar with Crager Terrace, Carter Terrace, where do you think the priorities are for the beautification of Colwood?
I think I'm familiar enough with Carter Terrace to take a stab at this one. And I've heard this on the doorsteps. I've heard people say, and you know, my first crack at any kind of political running, they say all politics is local. Well, in Colwood, it seems to be local within about 100 yards of your house. So I have heard that exact complaint about other cul-de-sac bubbles where the landscaping's not getting done. Things, but you know, if it's bothering you, it's a big thing to you. Other issues, and I don't frankly think that's acceptable that people are complaining to the city hall and it's not getting dealt with. There should be a reason. There should be somebody going and telling them why it's not being done. They may not like that reason, but they need to be dealt with and addressed with. So I don't think it's unreasonable to say if you've got a complaint or concern with the city of Colwood, you get a number, and there's a complaint and concern book, and you're number 1 or 20 or whatever it may be, and that gets dealt with, and people go to it, and the staff knows that they have to address these, and if they get to the point where they're beyond the staff, then maybe it has to go up the stairs to a senior staff or council or something to say, yeah, that cul-de-sac bowl should be maintained and landscaped because it's part of our infrastructure and it's part of what makes Colwood a nice place. Let's not. I had one lady telling me she had a family reunion and the weeds were 3 feet high in the bowl all the time. You know, that's not Colwood. That shouldn't be Colwood. We can do better. And so, yeah, that's my point.
How do you plan to develop road infrastructure as our community expands?
Excellent, excellent. Well, there's a couple of issues here. The first piece of road infrastructure that needs to be developed is the Trans-Canada Highway. That is the major bottleneck on the Lower Island. And when that is addressed, certainly things will flow better. But the other issue is how do we deal with expanding the road system and improving the sidewalk infrastructure within our own community so we can drive from Royal Bay to Colwood Corner to Halley Shopping Center, whatever. Funding is an issue. There's no doubt about it. But what has bugged me in the past that revenue from new development has just gone into the coffers. My feeling is, and this is a practice that has changed this past year, but my feeling is that revenue that comes from new development, so an increase to the tax base, ought to go and fund the infrastructure that needs to be constructed, right? So we realize $500,000 of new tax revenue from new construction. Well, darn it, a portion of that ought to go to building sidewalks in a community. Ought to go to expanding or repairing roads. Ought to be improving the situation for residents that already live here. I'm happy that that's changed. We're starting to address the issue. It's a little late, but I think that's where new development can really benefit, and it should benefit existing residents, right? There should be some benefit if we're welcoming new projects into the community.
What is your stance on high-density development in established neighborhoods?
Okay, well, I happen to be one of these lucky people that has a detached home. We share it with other family members, but what I truly believe, and I think we see this leadership coming from bigger cities, more density, especially over the Lower Mainland, but I do believe there is room for increased densification in established neighborhoods if it's done in the right way. And a great, for instance, is how the community now has legal suites. And that was a step forward where we can all register our suites at City Hall and pay our fee each year. How about 2 suites? What about the possibility of building a carriage home? Again, on the right lot footprint, with the right setback, within the established bylaws and parameters. So I do believe there is room for it. What concerns me is where we see a 0 lot development and there's no wraparound consideration given to infrastructure or parking. I can tell you, knocking on your doors, I spoke to a number of people that moved from Langford. Langford's doing some great stuff, but they bought a starter home in West Hills, realized they couldn't park anything anywhere, nor could their friends, and then they put no parking signs up and down the street on the street you already couldn't park on, and they decided to sell, and they upgraded moving to from Langford to Colwood. Of course, I welcomed them with open arms, and they were quite happy to be here. So I do believe there is room to densify. I do believe that the reality of the size of our lots and our homes nowadays, that reality is going to change as we move forward. And I do believe there is room for some densification of older established neighborhoods. I don't think we plow them and build again, but I do believe that we can add.
lessons have been learned from the experiences at Colwood Corners and Whale Road so that such occurrences may never happen again?
I've worked for Colwood for 10 years before retirement. Before that, I worked for Langford for 13 years. This problem came up in Langford too. You just maybe didn't notice it amongst the forestry projects, but it did happen. People sought a way to actually prevent it, and nobody has been able to find one. People talked about, okay, but we should make the developer put up a bond. Well, the developer already puts up a bond, and now he has to put up another bond. You know, there's only so much money in a project, and he has to put up a bond for the whole value of the project. Who's going to lend him the money to build the project? It's just unworkable. That doesn't mean to say there's nothing you can do about it, but I think, and it's been said here already, some of the ways are to be more developer friendly in the sense that better, faster service. That doesn't mean to say ignoring the rules. It doesn't mean to say, as I say, giving away the store. But once you've got a developer in the door that wants to build something, you need to process that as fast as possible. And in addition, sometimes, you know, a development may need a bit of help. Big hole in Whale Road. Okay, that hole is a problem. It was built for a parking lot, parking garage for 23 stories. That's not going to happen in any foreseeable future. Who wants to buy it when they have to fill 2/3 of the hole before they can build anything? But maybe you can find something useful to put in there, something that will make money, like storage units. Okay, why don't we find 2 developers who together can complete that project? We may need to get out there and actually help it along. I agree with Carol though, on the only one, there was nothing that could be done. Those are big boys, they do what they want.
Municipalities play a key role in helping support the health and the well-being of children, youth, and adults in the community. What would you like to see in Colwood to further their efforts in this regard?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? Sorry. Blame this on nerves.
Municipalities play a key role in helping support the health and the well-being of children, youth, and adults in the community. What would you like to see Colwood do in the future to further their efforts in this regard?
Well, obviously, being somebody that has 2 small children myself, I would love to see our municipality spend a little bit more careful care and attention focusing on our youth. I don't think I've heard anybody in the room tonight mention that marijuana is going to be legal on October 17th, so I'll be the person to put that out there. I didn't grow up in a generation where it was legal to smoke marijuana, and now my children are going to be able to essentially at some point choose to smoke marijuana. I think that I would like to see the city of Colwood put a little bit of focus on, you know, having some informal education sessions for our kids to teach them about, prepare them for their future. And just, you know, we need to nurture our children in the same way that we do our community. And I think that we can certainly do more as a city to better support our children and as well our seniors. You know, I did spend some time working in the retirement industry when I was younger. And I would like to see us sort of bridging that generational gap between seniors and our youth again. And I would just like to see the municipality spend a little bit more creative time in thinking of ways to kind of bring us all together again. Thank you.
How do you see promoting renewable energy in Colwood?
For those of you from a few years back, Colwood led a solar Colwood project, thanks to the council of the day and some who are sitting in the audience. And we were, the council and city were promoted that in Colwood itself, and had such success with it that we were able to push that out to the CRD and region. So there are a lot of benefactors for that program that we had there that included ductless heat pumps and solar energy. It's something that we have to be thinking about. I had advocated to the previous owners of the Royal Bay project to consider putting solar connects on all of those rooftops on that slope. Would have added and contributed to solar energy that would have probably lit that whole area up in its public walkways and connection routes throughout there at no charge to the city for the sake of having a couple of panels on your roof. Costs would be realized by the homeowners. I've taken tours of passive homes in Victoria that people are seeking to have those residences, and they pay as little as $30 a month for everything in their home. So their return in time comes back very quickly. These are things that we can work with our development folks to be leaders on in the community. Beyond the city changing out its lights into LEDs and doing what it can in our own home, so to speak. So that's a target in future conversations as we go forward. Thank you.
Michael. Do you know what CMHC definition of affordable housing is? And are you willing to advocate a certain percentage of developer units as affordable dedicated?
I don't actually know what the CMHC designation is, or definition is, but I think we need a definition that works for Colwood. So people, exist at all kinds of income levels and other expense levels, if you like, and everybody can afford a housing unit of a certain type, rental or condominium or single family, depending on their income and depending on if such a unit exists in the community. Okay, so we need to know what that need curve is. And fortunately, the provincial government just passed a law that will, as soon as the regulations of that are passed, require all municipalities to collect information like that. What different types of housing are required and how much, and submit it to the provincial government. And I'm sure the regional government will collect that data as well. And all three levels should be involved in trying to solve the housing crisis, and now they will all have the same information, and it will all be gathered according to the methods and end goals specified in the regulations. So we're going to get the information that will provide us with not just a word definition, but an actual graph definition of what affordable is, and then we can work out where the gaps are and work to fill those gaps in. And we could be talking supportive housing, elder care, whatever type of housing is needed. We will know what the target is. I remember there was a certain mayor in one of the other municipalities who, when presented with a bunch of money to build housing, was asked, will that be enough? And of course nobody knew if it was enough. We need to know what would be enough.
What are your thoughts on high-density development in established neighborhoods? We had that one already.
You did, but sure, yeah. I think I have a slightly different opinion on high density in established neighborhoods. Given I am very grateful that I have the opportunity to live in an established neighborhood, personally, I couldn't see where they would want to create any high density in the area that I live in. I definitely am, I'm for high density neighborhoods in a responsible way where we need them. I think I may be a little stumped on this. I just don't really understand how we would create a high density neighborhood in somewhere that's already established. So I'm sorry, that might not answer the question, but yeah, that's all I got. I'm sorry.
Where is Colwood going with the sewer situation?
Kind of a variation of the questions that we've already had before. So you've heard folks, council day one, I mean, truly, we are about 70% of folks without sewers. Septic systems, if looked after properly, are long lasting and can be used well in the system, and we sit on a rock pit, folks. It's a different story in Oak Bay in their areas. Not to say that we can't be making improvements, but an example was council within this last term had, I'm pretty sure it was this term, they had made an effort to improve Kelly Road between Souk and the MP. That would include sewers, it would include sidewalks, it would include improved boulevards and accesses to driveways and those safety concerns. The community there was petitioned. This is what we have in place coming forward to your community. And in the response, somebody tipped the needle to the no side. Council's hands are then tied. We don't jam that down your throat. We have to step back and wait for another opportunity. So we are trying. We have a master sewer plan. We are trying to implement. Our best hookup to sewer is through new development that is paying for that. And when they pay for a line spur to come in, that opens the door and opportunity for others to get on board. We will find ways to make those connections happen. But it is a multi-million-dollar quest to try and do it for everybody. Thank you.
What is Colwood's plan for infrastructure with this ever-increasing population in the municipality? Are you a new candidate? What do you think of the infrastructure priorities are for Colwood?
Okay, happy to answer that one. Frankly, sewers within the area of Colwood that are sitting on the gravel pit, the 700 feet deep, I wouldn't consider a priority. Sidewalks, especially on the way to school and some of the narrow roads with heavy traffic, I would consider a priority. I'd like to see bike lanes and bike paths. I think every time we have a commuter cyclist, we take one car off the road, and it's a realistic and sensible way for a lot of people to get to and from work. Street lighting is in some places, although to be frank, the costs of street lighting over the city of Colwood and the annual bills for the street light, unless they're all solar powered, which so far hasn't evolved to the point where it would make much sense in the middle of the winter, would be good. Those would be my priorities. Let's finish off a bunch of sidewalks to connect neighborhoods and do it in a way where we go to each neighborhood one at a time and ask them, do you want sewers? Do you want sidewalks? What do you think maybe about a little bit of development? Subdivide it down into sort of bite-sized pieces and ask people what they want and what they're prepared to pay for. I don't necessarily say they have to pay for all of it, but they should be contributing. You know, if they want them. That's my 2 cents worth.
Please share your view of how to protect and grow a viable downtown core, and B, a protected waterfront that's accessible to all.
Okay, well, with a downtown core, you need to, we need to encourage new development, new businesses in the Colwood Corner area, or even the Royal Bay Town Centre, or any other commercial node that the community has identified. How we encourage is by being creative. Sometimes developers, business owners aren't willing to take the risk if the community isn't willing to take the risk with them. Creativity means perhaps offering a tax break like we did with the Holiday Inn Express. That hotel would not be there today had we not said, you know what, we're willing to stand there with you and offer you an incentive to locate the Colwood. Yeah, we gave them a 10-year tax-free holiday on not all of it, but on a portion of their development. But what that means to the taxpayer is they've got fresh revenue in 10 years. They've got frontage improvements that were never there and would never be there had that hotel not be constructed. So we need to be creative. Now, with our Colwood waterfront, how we protect that is by promoting it. We all enjoyed it. Probably not enough up until the last few years. And so by highlighting its beauty, by celebrating its beauty, it means that people take ownership in its location, in its beauty. And I know a park down the street from me that the community is heavily invested in, they contributed to. And the people in the townhouses right across the street from that park keep an eye on it. They're invested. They take care of it. And I think I think if we celebrate what we have, we draw attention to what we have, it encourages people to take some ownership.
Our contribution to the CRD is sustainable. Oh, sorry, is substantial. What will you do to hold the CRD accountable?
That's a softball right over the plate. Well, firstly, I'm not an incumbent councillor. Some say that might be a good thing. What I have to say about the CRD and some of the things I've heard while I've been out knocking on doors is that it is an unelected body. Am I right in that, Madam Mayor? Yeah. So we don't, some jurisdictions allow for elected officials to be appointed. For instance, Saanich, you run for both council and if you want to be appointed to CRD. We don't here, the mayor is our appointee. So a large part of that body are non-elected officials making decisions for us as a region. And actually, did you know this, that I heard this, and that I was told when I knocked on a door that actually the way the CRD is structured is actually a model for the rest of the country and around the world. So I'm here to tell you folks that apparently it's humming along nicely and it's other people are using it as an example. I'm not so sure how exactly I feel about this. I do believe that senior level of government to deliver services across the region, like the water, it's probably a good thing. Now, where that fits in with issues like regional amalgamation and amalgamation of services and an overarching level of government, you know, I'm not so sure. But we do pay a lot. As we all saw in the newspaper, we're going to be paying a bunch more for the sewer levy to the CRD, and it's a shocking amount. And so I think it's only growing. That billion-dollar plant has started, and I think it's only going to get worse as they start digging the hole and developing the plant.
Alrighty, that concludes the questioning for the evenings. Candidates will now share their closing statements. And as we did in the beginning, we will draw for the order with the candidate on his right to follow in succession. 2 minutes for councillor candidate, please. Carol, you'll have 3 minutes at the end. Starting with Misty.
Thanks, Gordy. Sorry if I flopped a few times tonight. This is, I am used to speaking to large groups, but not quite in this manner. I want to express my sincere gratitude for having the opportunity to be here tonight. Let me assure you that I'm here for all the right reasons. As a parent, I understand the desire to create a healthy and safe environment for our children, and I will work with council to improve daily life for all residents with focus on our children, including at-risk youth, seniors, and the hard to house. As someone who personally struggles with a chronic health condition, I understand the need for easy access to health care services. I will be an advocate for better care to those in our community, including our aging population. I believe that a healthy and vibrant community comes from our personal connection with those around us. We must strive better at being connected and engaged with our neighbors. I believe that consistent public interaction shapes our feelings and our actions towards our community. And as the world around us changes, we need to be adaptable, good listeners, and willing to make change. I am committed to putting in the time and energy to grow and learn from Mayor and Council. I know I have a lot to learn. And I will work hard to make Colwood a desirable place to live, work, and play for current residents and new families looking to plant roots. I will make decisions based on my own morality and will stay true to course when it comes to aligning with our official community plan and the vision for a brighter future. We must think and vote responsibly, and I ask for your support in electing me, Misty Olson, for a seat on Colwood Council. Thank you.
Well, thank you for toughing it out. It's been a long night for all of us, maybe especially for you. I'd like to thank, of course, again, the Chamber of Commerce again and the church for having us. I'd like to wish good luck to all the other candidates and bonne chance. I think you can see you have some excellent candidates here. You won't have difficulty picking a good council out of this. Your community will be served by whoever you select from this. Should you choose to select me, I hope in 4 years you come in here and you go, man, that guy asked a bunch of hard questions at the council table, and what a cheap son of a gun he was with all our money. So, thank you. Good night.
Well, the steward was right. The community can't go wrong, quite frankly, with any of our candidates. We're going to have a great council, no matter who's elected, and that's really a tribute to the folks that have stepped up. Ladies and gentlemen, there's going to be a significant change on council, no doubt about it. Given that change, a council with a mix of new eyes and experienced hands will ensure that there's continuity. I bring the experience and the passion and the drive to get it done. I've seen it all for my 19 years. I've seen what's worked, what hasn't worked. I've seen challenging councils and councils that work really well together. Colwood deserves a council that does work well together, that can agree to disagree, that can work on creative solutions for economic development, for housing, for transportation options. And those that know me and follow me on Twitter, @CoreyLogan, know that I am a community advocate first and foremost. I love this community. And it is not uncommon to see me walking every weekend in a different community, different neighborhood throughout Colwood. I've always found that valuable. So has my dog. And it really keeps me in touch with what's happening in the community. It is not unusual on Monday morning for me to give Public Works a call to say, hey, there's a pothole on Kilby. That sort of thing. It's who I am. Now, I didn't get involved in municipal government because I needed a job. I've worked for Island Health for 27 years. I've gotten involved because I believe that I can make a difference. I came to this role with one agenda, and that's to make the community a better place. Sure, I've made decisions that haven't been popular, but you know what? If you want to elect someone that is there to make a popular decision and not the right decision, then don't vote for me. I want to make the right decision. Walt Disney said, all dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. So I say, folks, let's pursue our dreams. Let's build our community. Let's do it together. My name's Gordy Logan, and I hope you vote for me on October 20th.
Thanks, Gord. Thank you all for coming. I was humbled to participate. As I said earlier, I've knocked on almost 2,000 doors. I've heard much from all of you. It really doesn't matter what I think. I have some ideas, but it really matters to me what you think. Some of what I've heard, some of the positives. We have a vibrant and strong sense of happiness in living here. Many of us have moved from elsewhere across the CRD, Alberta, Saskatchewan, the US, and even the United Kingdom. You love our beaches, trails, parks, and streams, and we are a dog-friendly community. Let me tell you, there are a lot of dogs out there. Issues. I've heard those too. Development, too much, too little, too fast, too slow. The traffic-related stuff, we've heard all about it. The famous Colwood holes in the ground, a common thread throughout the evening. Sewers and the ever-increasing taxes. In conclusion, I appreciate everybody coming out to hear us drone on. As a potential new member of your council, I promise I will listen. Not just listen, but hear what you have to say and be your advocate. We may not always agree, but I will engage in civil discourse always. I believe strongly in communication, both to and from council. Where I make a decision, I'm happy to provide my reasoning. I stand here before you all and I make a promise. As a police officer, I understand the importance of community safety, and commitment. I live a life of service and integrity. If you place your trust in me as your voice on council, I will keep my word. It would be my honor to serve you all. Check me out, deanjansen.ca, Facebook, @elect Dean And in celebration of this evening, I was really bored at work doing surveillance, drafted a haiku, which is a 3-line traditional Japanese poem in the 5/7 to 5 syllable format. Have you voted for Dean? No more unfinished projects. Colwood evergreen.
That is so classy, Dean. I think I should just let you drop the mic. I want to say thanks to the Chamber for putting this on. If anybody else wants to put another one on, great. I think I know how to do it. I've tried it once. Thank you to the Church of the Advent for hosting this. Thank you to you, the audience. It looks like almost all of you stayed for the full time. And that takes some dedication, and I hope it helps you choose who to vote for. And I want to say that you have a fantastic bunch of candidates. I think pick any 7 out of these candidates, and I think you've got yourself a good council. I hope you all heard that. And just remember, I'm the one at the top of the ballot now. I think that's a good thing for Colwood. It shows that local government is healthy in Colwood and thriving. And that is a wonderful thing. I think that the time I've spent knocking on doorsteps, and I hope to see more of you on doorsteps for the election, has made me realize a lot of the things that Dean has talked about. And I've got a list of things that I want to tackle when I get to council if I do. And if I don't, I'll be in the audience. I'm going to take part in local government, whatever the outcome is. So I'll see you there in the audience if I'm not elected. Thank you.
Well, this is it, and it wraps up the evening. So thank you very much again for every one of you that persevered through and stayed attentive to the detail, to the chamber, to the church, and to all of those that supported getting this together. Tonight you heard much about what candidates will do to make Colwood better over the next 4 years. The truth is that each of us are only one vote. The mayor is only as good as the team. And that much has to be accomplished with collaboration and consensus. I believe that the last 7 years spent on council speaks to my ability to work with a council and reach those consensual decision makings that bring thoughtful process to our city. I listen and respect diverse points of view. I continue to foster good relationships within Colwood, at council, and with representatives of other Westshore communities and throughout the region, our First Nations and other upper levels of government. I feel strongly about the need for teamwork. Council must work together and needs a strong, fair-minded and open-minded leader to reach consensus. It may be an old saying, but it's true. Together, everyone achieves more. Your council in 2018 is Team Colwood. I look for your support on October 10th, 17th, and 20th, and no, you can't go vote 3 times. But come out, the voting poll will be set up shortly, this is just an aside on, we have Colwood Community Association has worked with the staff at City of Colwood, so this has been us talking at you. There's an opportunity on Thursday from 6 till as long as maybe we need, at Colwood City Hall for you folks to come in, candidates who are available, and I'm hoping that's everyone, but I know lovely Eve has a family trip planned, so she will not be able to be there with us. But may be an opportunity for you, much like what was in the other room, is to come. And you might have picked up a question or two from tonight and have that conversation with us. So I invite you all to come down on Thursday and participate in that part as well. Thank you.
So ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the evening. On behalf of the Westshore Chamber of Commerce, we want to thank everybody for coming out. Again, there's the evening, Thursday night, typically 6 to 7, Colwood City Hall. Meet your candidates again. Any questions we didn't answer, if you had specific ones for them, please be there and ask them directly your questions so you know who to vote for. Thanks everybody for coming out.